My name is Zola, and I live in the village of Marula, nestled at the foot of the Boma Hills. We've always been a farming community. Our lives tied to the rhythm of the rains and the bounty of the earth. We're known for our sweet maize, the kind that bursts with flavor when roasted over coals. For generations, we've traded with neighboring villages, a fair exchange of goods keeping us all fed. Then came Django. He arrived during the dry season, a tall, lean man with a smile that could charm a hyena. He set up a stall in the market square, selling maize at prices that made our own crops seem ridiculously expensive. At first we were relieved. The drought had been harsh, and many families were struggling. Django's grain met no one when hungry. He spoke our language, knew our customs, and even shared stories around the evening fires. He told us he had vast fields beyond the great river, where the rains were always plentiful. He was a good man, he said, just trying to help his fellow villagers. At first we were grateful, but then things started to change. Our own maize fields, once lush and green, began to wither. The stalks turned yellow, the cobs small and shriveled. We blamed the drought, of course, but the rains had returned and still our crops failed. My uncle, Ksi, a man who knows the land like the back of his hand, was the first to voice his suspicions. Sola, he said to me one evening, his brow furrowed, Django's maize, it's too cheap, and our fields, they're dying, something isn't right. We watched Django's movements, his deliveries, his interactions with the villagers. We noticed he always arrived from the west, a long journey that should have taken days. Yet he always seemed fresh and tired. We followed his wagon tracks, but they always disappeared into the rocky terrain beyond the village. We trailed him for hours through winding paths and thorny bushes. He led us to a hidden valley, a place we had never seen before, and there we saw it, a vast field of maize, stretching as far as the eye could see. But it wasn't our maize, it was a strange variety, smaller and paler with a peculiar metallic sheen. The ground around it was bare, scorched as if nothing else could grow there. We hid behind a cluster of baobab trees and watched as Django's men unloaded his wagon and began harvesting the strange maize. We waited until they were gone, and then we ventured into the field. The soil felt dry and brittle, and the air was thick with a strange, acrid smell. I pulled a cob from a stalk and examined it closely. This is not natural maize, he said, his voice grim. It's been treated with something that poisons the earth. We took a sample of the maize and the soil back to Marula. We showed it to the village elders, and they consulted with the traditional healers. They confirmed Ksi's suspicions. The maize had been treated with a powerful chemical, a substance that depleted the soil and prevented other crops from growing. The next morning, we confronted Django in the market square. You have poisoned our land, Ksi accused, holding up the sample of the maize. You have stolen our livelihood. We learned that Django wasn't a farmer at all. He was a trader, exploiting desperate communities with his cheap, tainted maize. He had found a way to grow crops quickly, without regard for the long-term consequences. He cared only for profit, not for the health of our land or our people. The elders decided that Django had to leave Marula. He was banished from our village, his tainted maize burned, and his name forever marked with shame. We worked together to heal our land, planting new crops and restoring the soil with traditional methods. It took time, but eventually, our fields began to flourish again. We learned a valuable lesson that day. Trust is a precious thing, and it must be earned. And sometimes the cheapest things come at the highest cost. We also learned that the strength of our community is in our shared knowledge and our connection to the land. We are Marula, and we will always protect our home.